Our guest tonight is Cathy Lindsey.
Hi.
And
This is going to be awesome for me. I've known Cathy for a lot of years. We met through our support of the International Council of 13 Indigenous Grandmothers. And we've remained friends for a lot of years. She has got so much knowledge about astrology, and of course hers is evolutionary astrology, which is really cool. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy this evening. Cathy, would you like to say hello and tell us a little bit about how you got started in astrology?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Cathy Lindsey, and I work under AstroEyes Evolutionary Astrology. And yes, I've known Arda, I think maybe it was 2008 when I met you.
Yeah, something like that. That's a long time ago.
Way back, you know.
Yeah.
I got into astrology after I had cancer surgery. And when I woke up in the recovery room, my angels and guides were all around me. And they told me that the cancer was gone and that I had something to do and they would guide me. And their voices were musical, by the way. I knew what they were saying, but it was all tones and music. And they looked like angels that I would remember or would think of, but yet they were energy. They weren't totally formed, and they guided me. I knew I was being guided and pushed, and I ended up in astrology. And I can remember going into a metaphysical bookstore and going through some of the astrology books and going, no, this isn't right. No, this isn't right. Where's the higher part of this? And I had no idea what I was really looking for because I had never really gone into any astrology books. And then all of a sudden I'm going, okay, I'm being guided here. You know, I don't know what I'm looking for, but I know this isn't it. You know, certain books. Well, it took a little while before my two teachers had to self-publish their books because the normal book publishing companies wouldn't publish their astrology books because it included past lives and included the evolution of the soul, and it included the spiritual part of the continuation of the charts. And so they published their own books. They took off, and of course then the other companies wanted to publish them also. And it was around that time that I found them, and it was exactly what I was looking for. I wanted the higher spiritual meanings of, say, Neptune in the 8th house, although I didn't realize that's what I was looking for. So it was really a pretty interesting journey that I was on, and it just, everything just kind of clicked. I started remembering things, you know, from past learnings, etc. And I started doing my first readings in 1994 for like, you know, $5 or $10 for my friends and neighbors. And so that's the year that I used that I actually started doing readings, was in 1994. I'm a graduate of Stephen Forst's Evolutionary Astrology Apprenticeship Program at the high level. When I graduated, a few years later, he added another level, but I was already, you know, gone and out and had my certificates. I also studied with Jeffrey Wolf Green quite a bit, another evolutionary astrologer. They both wrote their books about the same time. Both books came out about the same time. And they even did some work together later on. They were referred to a lot as the Pluto brothers. So that's kind of how I got started. I just had faith that I was being guided, and I just kept going towards that. I never really, what do I want to say, thought about the cancer at all. I never even thought that it would ever be there. They said it was gone, and that's just kind of how I went through it. That was in 1991. I had cancer surgery, and I've been cancer-free ever since. And
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. It's such a cool story. I just with astrology, most everybody knows about astrology. What's the difference between astrology and evolutionary astrology?
Okay. There's a lot of forms of astrology, and astrology, that you read just in some of the books, and of course, the little horoscopes and stuff, which is just based on your sun. And of course, you have a moon and a bunch of other planets in your chart, but the columns that you read, that is your sun energy. We refer to it as Western astrology. There's a lot of astrology. There's Vedic astrology, there's Horae astrology, Buddhic astrology. There's a lot of different forms of astrology, but what everybody was used to was just what was referred to as Western astrology. Evolutionary astrology brings in the very high spiritual end of astrology. It brings in the evolution of your soul through lifetimes as shown in your birth chart. Your birth chart never ever changes. It gets activated. And as it gets activated, different situations, good and bad, come up. You learn to handle them, and that is how your soul evolves. With evolutionary astrology, we also can do a little parable of where you were in past lives that you've been working on the main lesson in this incarnation for you. We would refer to it as the South Node, and it's an area that it's time to let go of that stuff. And when we incarnate, we pick up where we left off. So the soul never forgets. So if you were, banished because, you believed in God or something, in some incarnation, that residue is still on your soul until you recognize it and you can release it. And that's part of what evolutionary astrology does. It's taken you to the higher level, the higher energies of your birth chart so that you can evolve, not only grow on the earth here and in this lifetime, but involving your soul also. And that's kind of the difference.
I know years ago you did a chart for me. I didn't even know you were going to do the chart. We barely knew each other at that point. And I didn't know where my life was going to go at that point, or even things that were coming up. I was just walking into a situation that I knew I was supposed to be in. I just didn't know where it was going to go or even how it was going to go. And so you did my chart and you brought it to a little gathering, and you helped me with that. And I have to say, she was exactly on date with what started me down the path that I've been walking now since then. A path I didn't know was going to happen. I knew something was going to happen. But, I mean, she was right to the day. And I was like, when that happened, it was like, oh, my gosh, this is just way too cool. She has helped me to see that, what I'm doing is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing and where I'm supposed to be going. And, I could never thank you enough just for affirming that's what it was. And, and the cool thing, like I said, you didn't know me. I didn't know you. And we really didn't know anything about each other. And it was amazing. It really was. So do you still do readings for people?
Oh yeah, a lot of them.
Okay.
And when I do readings too, like with you, I did that one for you, when I get going on the reading, I get a lot of guidance. I get a lot of information from my guidance and angels and guides and God, etc.
And that's one step more for astrology, because you're bringing in all of that spiritual help to help you do something that a lot of people just put in and do the chart as it is where the planets and things are. And I think that's, you know, your gift for so many people to help them see, you know, things that are going on. So
right. And one thing I'd like to say too is that with the astrology, it isn't the, you know, it's all energy. And so your chart is the energy you were born with to do your soul work with. And the planets, as they transit up in the sky, meet up with some of your birth chart planets and activate them. And that's how you evolve and that's how you grow. Now it's free will, free choice. You can go to the higher energies and the higher side, or you can, you know, go to the lower side. That's your choice. What do is give you the information of the energies you were born with and what's being activated, and then it's free will, free choice.
That's the cool part. And I'm kind of big on everybody making their own choices in their lives, and you know, and how they progress. And you know, that's where you step in and you help people. You give them the information that they need to make their choices. You don't tell them, okay, you need to do this or this or this or this. It's their choice. You give them what they need.
I give them the information, and I'll tell them what the grayer side looks like too. So if they feel themselves go there, they can, you know, recognize it and move forward, or, you know, but it's their choice.
Yep. That's the good part. That's the good part for me. You did some charts for the show tonight. You did my chart, I think you said, and you did the transits for today. And you also did where everything was aligned when Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin filmed Patty, which is really cool. I want to get into that in a little bit, because that's going to be something that I'd like if you would share all of these seeds that were being sown at that time, which is just really cool. And I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people of our generation, but even more so for some of these younger people who are here now, really wanting to make a difference in our world. So if we could start with today's transits and explain, if you would, what transits are.
Okay, yeah. Now the transits, that's where all the planets are up in the sky right now. And they all have their own individual energy. Every planet, star, asteroid has been scientifically proven, and the astronomers agree. They all have their own specific energy. And it's like as above, so below. And so when we're standing on Earth, we're receiving all those energies. And if their planets aren't getting along very well, they're in a square, they're having stress and friction, the energy we're receiving on Earth also is about chaos and friction and stress, which is what we're going through right now on the Earth and throughout, you know, the US and the whole world. The transits continue to move around, some very fast, some very slow. Pluto can stay in a sign for 25 years, and Mercury can be there for 3 weeks. So they all move at different speeds, and they activate things in your chart. It's all energy. And so energy is energy. And so when they do activate your chart, that's what I work with. I explain how they activate it. I explain what that means, and I give you the choice of, to head to the high side or the gray side. So the transits right now are very, very chaotic. They're very, very divided. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of fear. And you know, you can feel that in the collective. You just have to turn the news on, and there's a lot of that going on. And that's actually what's happening up in the sky right now. Now, one of the main players, of course, is Pluto. And Pluto's a planet of transformation. And transformation isn't easy. If it's easy, you're not doing the work, because you have to transform isn't an easy thing. Uranus, another main planet, is a constant of change. Wherever Uranus is, things are going to change. A little lighter energy changing, opposed to Pluto. That's a transformation of the soul. It goes down a little deeper. Mars, of course, is, you know, the warrior, the initiator, you know, a little bit of anger. Those are the three main, those are three of the main planets that are activating what's happening in the world right now. The one planet I want to talk about is Eris. Now, Eris was discovered in 2005, and she made herself extremely well known in 2015, before the elections of 2016. And Eris, her energy is chaos, discord, jealousy, wild card energy. That's her energy. And she came in Aries. She came in squaring Pluto, the planet of transformation, that's sitting in the sign of the government and corporate America and all of our structures. So we not only had, you know, Uranus, the constant of change, and Mars, the warrior. Now we had Eris coming in, and Eris started the Trojan War, basically, in mythology. So that's part of how these energies have amped up so much over these last few years. The main thing is also the fact that it's in Capricorn, which rules the government and the military and the stock market and corporate America. And the United States itself is at its first Pluto return. Okay, so the transformation of the United States, the planet of transformation, is sitting on Pluto, the natal Pluto in this chart of the United States. And so when the United States was founded in 1776, we were in a revolution. Guess what? First Pluto return. It takes 200 and some years for that to happen. We're in a revolution. Mm-hmm. This is all about energies, and you know, did I predict who's going to win presidency, etc.? We're not here to predict. Like we were talking, we're here to give you the information on the energies and what we need to do to move forward, etc. And one of the things
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool when, you know, all of that can tell us exactly where we're at. And, you know, if you would ask most people, they would definitely say we've been in transformation and chaos and everything else, you know, since that time. So it's out there, and so many of us are, you know, working to make the right choices and bring the things to this earth and to our lives that should be here.
Right. You know, and you can navigate these crazy energies that are out there right now a lot better if you understand your own energies you were born with.
Yeah. Yep. I can see where that would really make a difference.
Real quick, Ginger wanted to know, why is Pluto a planet of transformation?
Pluto rules Scorpio, and Scorpio is a sign of transformation. Scorpio goes deep down into the soul, you know, the dark night of the soul. We can have one of those kind of things. A lot of our detectives and forensic scientists, etc., are Scorpio. And so Scorpio itself, that sign, is about transformation. And Pluto rules Scorpio. So that's how you get that connection in it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. What do you think is something that helps us understand these things when we know more about ourselves and our own triggers and whatever? How do we get to that place?
Well, when you understand the energies and stuff, it gives you Well, for a lot of people, and you even said it, it validates where you were thinking about going, but gosh, I don't know if I should go there, or should I really do this? It'll help give you a validation, which helps you kind of move forward that way. And if you kind of understand the energies a little bit, I never let anybody go when I do a chart. I don't without giving them a little clue as to what the energies out there, how that's affecting their chart. Because you walk out that door and you're in those energies also. So when you understand yours, it's easier for you to learn how to kind of balance or shut off some of the energy out there. And and what else did I forget the second part of your question?
Yeah, that pretty much answered, what I was saying. So, okay, back to the transits.
Well, one thing too, the transits right now are, like I said, very chaotic, and they're very, very volatile. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of fear, because they're activating a lot of different people with a lot of different soul work, and a lot of them are not of the higher end. They're trying to trigger fear or whatever. So learning to use your energies to what do I want to say? To block that fear, or to, we have to get those energies like out of here, the fear energy, the scare energy. We've got to get back to using our own energy to what, I can't think of the word I want to use, to soften the energies out there, etc. I tell a lot of people, watch what you say, watch your words. Watch the energy you're putting in those words. Watch your body language. Watch everything like that, because people are forgetting to do that because they've been so wrapped up with the elections and all the chaos going on, that we have to diffuse. That's the word I wanted. We have to diffuse this energy out here. That's very chaotic and very, very volatile and very divisive. Division. We have to diffuse that now. We need, and move on and start trying to bring, people back together again. And so diffusing it on the very high spiritual side, and just, everybody has a right to their own opinion, and that's fine. Don't force it on me, and don't bring in fear and anger. And, that is going back to a lot what we were talking about before we came on. The seeds that were planted back in the 60s were planted with peace, love, and music.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we, full circle. That's what we need to get back to.
Yep, I agree. I mean, that's, and it's really simple what we need to do to be in the space we need to be in. But so many take it and make it this complicated thing. For me, there's so much talk about ascension. What do you got to do to ascend? Number one for me is to be kind. I mean, if you want to higher your vibrations and build them up, be kind and compassion and love and all these things. And I know these are hippie words, but they're seeds that, are so true.
Okay, so take one just quick little look. The astrology, I have many, many charts in the astrology of the 60s, etc. I just want to say one thing. You can take Woodstock, and 2 months later, Big Sur concert in California. Woodstock, hundreds of thousands of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were no arrests for anything violent. 3 days with like 1 million people. Not one arrest for anything violent. A couple of arrests.
That's amazing.
Same with Big Sur, 100,000 people, not one arrest. Peace, love, music, smile on your brother. Come on, everybody, let's love one.
Yep.
That's what we need to get back to. When you can gather a crowd like that, which has been gathering, during all the last several years, but have no arrests, then we're back to where God and everyone really wants us: peace, love, taking care of each other.
Yeah. And we have such a wonderful chance of bringing that energy back and, you know, putting it back where it needs to be. And, you know, and I have people all the time, you know, say, well, you're just a no hippie. Well, maybe so, you know, but the things that came from that era, the good things are something we need to be sharing so much right now.
And that's that 60s part 1, 60s part 2. So now, you know, I just tell everybody, well, we're in the 60s part 2 now. And they look at me. I said, we need to connect with 60s part 1, what worked, and bring it back into the 60s part 2, so that we can ascend, so that we can get into the building of the new. You can't build the new on a crumbling foundation.
No, you're perfectly right there. So, oh, wow.
But one thing with the transits you were asking about, we're moving into the Aquarian energies. So, you know, the dawning of the age of Aquarius, the mid-60s, we have that door wide open right now. We have a foot in there, and we're starting to walk into the total age of Aquarius. On December 21st, the winter solstice, we had Jupiter and Saturn both move into Aquarius. Saturn was a big one. Saturn actually rules Capricorn. During that time, we shifted into a 200-year cycle of air energy. We have been in a 200-year cycle of earth energy, but more of the drudgery, and we got to build something new, and we got to take care of the foundation of the earth energy. On December 21st, we moved for the next 200 years into air energy, and starting with Aquarius. And Aquarius is about we the people. It's about the tribe. It's about the community. It's about humanity. It's about the genius. It's thinking outside the box, seeing that big picture down the road, and about constant change, but in a lighter energy. So in the 200-year cycle of the air energy that we're in right now, it's a lighter energy, and you can manifest faster. And that's the key. We can manifest.
Yes, yeah, I totally believe that. I mean, we have that ability to manifest all of this. And, you know, it really makes me excited because I lived in that seed planting, the beginning generation. I was there, and I'm still here and seeing so much of the fruit. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is such a cool time to be alive and see what's going on.
To be able to see that connection. And yeah, and it's like, you know, all these things, and you know, that when I was researching all that, it's like, I've been there, I've done that. You know, I signed those petitions for Earth Day.
Yeah.
I was in those marches. You know, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You were out there planting seeds. That's just the coolest analogy.
I entered junior high in 64, 68. I entered college. You know, I was right in the midst of all of it. And, yeah.
That's just too cool. Oh. So, have you got anything else on the transits for us?
Just, you know, like I said, just try to wrap everything in. We're in a chaotic time period. We're in the last stages of the teardown, so that we can build the new. Like I said, the United States is at its first Pluto return. And so, you know, watch what you say. Nothing that, you know, say things that don't hurt people. Don't bully. Don't make fun of, you know. Don't put people down for what they believe. We have the right, and all of us, to believe what it is we need to believe. If we all believed the same, it'd be very boring. But honor the other people too. You know, through these whole elections and everything, my thing has always been, you know, you have a right to your own opinion. I honor that. And then I stop, and I kind of diffuse if they're, you know, wanting to convince me to do something else. It's like, you know, and just kind of diffuse, work on diffusing the anger out there, work on diffusing the kind of hate and the division that's going on. so that it can gradually get back to more, smile on your brother and some more peace and love kind of a thing, which is what we need.
Right.
The new is. People want to ascend and they want the new to happen. Well, you can't do it in that energy.
Nope, you got to be it to bring it. And if you can't be it, then you're not going to be able to bring it. And that's one of the most important things to me, is to keep myself in the space where I know I'm supposed to be, and not measure myself by anybody else, and not try to measure anybody else by me, and that's been a test for pretty much everybody over this past year. Lots of people putting out their opinions as if it were gospel truth. And it may be for them, but it might not be for me or for someone else. But I am not going to go after someone who believes different than I am and call them names and belittle them and tell them they don't know what they're talking about. That's not my place to be. And doing that is certainly not going to be something that's going to be a positive outcome for me. And that's where it all starts with all of us, is ourselves.
Yeah. We all need to really start focusing on that diffusing. Diffusing of those energies and the honoring of everybody in their own opinion. We can all have our own opinion. We don't have to force people to think like us.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I totally agree. Sam and I talk about that a lot, that, you've got all of these people who they have to be right. And, it doesn't really serve a purpose for the whole. If I were to tell you, well, Cathy, you don't know what you're talking about, this is really how it is, and that serves no purpose but to bring those lower energies in, and to create energy that I just soon not have around me or be putting out.
Right.
It's ego food is what a lot of that is.
Yes, I think you're right, Sam. I think so.
Yeah.
I have a question from Michael Harrell. Are you familiar with the yugas?
With what?
The yugas, like the like Indian astrology, kind of old, like Vedic stuff, like the Kali Yuga, Satya Yuga, and all that.
I'm not real familiar with it. I do, I know of a lot of the different astrologies. I honor all of them, within the people that can. I'm not. I don't work with the Vedic, and I don't work with that one, and some of the others I've done a little bit of. There's Magi astrology. There's Buddha astrology. There's, I'm not real familiar with it, so I don't feel comfortable saying a whole lot. I believe it all works within the context of the traditions of the different ones.
Right. Yeah, totally. Like I know just enough about astrology to know that I don't know anything about astrology.
As astrologers say that there's no way we could ever learn everything about astrology. Right. There's so much. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna let you guys listen to what Cathy did for my chart. So, some people, this is pretty private. I'm just going to open it up here.
All right. I found it really interesting when I looked at your chart. The 10th house is like the public house. So it's kind of your public reputation, basically, how people are seeing you at this time in your life. And you have Pluto in that house. So they've been seeing for several years a lot of transformation you've been going through. And some of it's been kind of public.
Yes.
It is. But this is good. So Saturn right now is sitting between your Jupiter and your Venus in that 10th house. And when I looked at your chart and brought it up, I thought, well, no wonder she's doing these podcast things, right now, because you're getting your information out there. But Aquarius, again, Aquarian energy is big. And in 2023, for about 4 months, Pluto moves into Aquarius, and then it moves into Aquarius full time, totally, for 25 years. In January of 2024, we'll be totally in the age of Aquarius. But the reason I am pointing Aquarius out is because that is we the people. That is the tribe, the community, and all of us together and thinking outside the box. Okay, so in your 10th house, you have Jupiter, which is like the master teacher, the published author, Jupiter rules Sagittarius, a lot of knowledge there. And then you have Venus, which is the love and the creativity, and bringing that all together in Aquarius, in the 10th house, which is the public house. People see this in you. And right now, Saturn is transiting it, which gives you the ability to present it and do it with integrity and respect, and to follow what rules need to be followed. But Saturn rules Capricorn. Capricorn is the only sign that can take the very high spiritual and bring it down and ground it into the earth plane. Capricorn's the only sign that can do that. It's a goat with a fishtail. The fishtail is bringing the high spiritual and grounding it. It's also the sign of the wisdom of the elders. And it's all ruled by Saturn sitting on your Jupiter, which expands, brings in good luck, optimism, master teachers, published authors, and Venus, which is your love for community, your love for the group, etc. So that's happening right now for you.
I kind of have had, not now, but pulled away from being very public, but I needed to. It was time for me to not be putting a lot of stuff out there. There were some transformations that were happening in me. One was definitely not knowing if I was going to live or die, which I never once thought I was going to die. I mean, I was asked, was I ready to go? And I said, nope. And so, I didn't go. I'm still here. And the interesting thing about the podcast is Sam had talked about it a while back, I think. And then I had some things come up in my memories. And then Sam was talking about the podcast, and all of them linked in together. And he said, yep, he was going to do a podcast. And I said, well, how can I help you? Well, here I am once again. So it's, and for Sam and I both, this is such something that we feel in our heart that we're supposed to be doing. It's not just us getting out there and talking, but it's bringing people like you and others who've got a voice that people need to hear.
Yeah, it's important. There's so many things that need to be, or that people need to become aware of, or just, be introduced to, I guess you could say.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of people out there, trying to grab at something because things are so chaotic and, I mean, a lot of people don't have anything solid to really stand on. The rug has been pulled out from under their feet so much over the last 5-6 years. And, they're wanting some kind of something a little more solid.
Yeah.
And then like your intuitive abilities, your healing abilities. I mean, when I look at your 6th house, you have Neptune conjunct your moon, extremely psychic, intuitive. Okay. conjunct your south node, conjunct karmic vertex point, conjunct Juno, conjunct Mars, conjunct Saturn, all in your 6th house. And the 6th house is the house of health and healing. It's the house of mentorship, which you've been a mentor to me a lot. I mean, I've called you desperate before and written down what you said. I don't know if you remember. The first time I spoke, remember? I think I had you on the phone probably an hour before. All those planets I just mentioned are also in the house of service. And you have been, it's like you came in here to be of service to people, to help guide them where they, you know, on the spiritual realm and the feeling realm and in all different areas, you know, with the grandmothers. I mean, you were one of the grandmothers, not one of the 13, but one of the grandmothers that was in there, the wisdom part and with everything else, you know, and it shows right there, you came in, you were of service a lot in past lives. And you brought that knowledge into service and mentorship now. And your North Node, of course, is in the 12th, which is even a higher, you know, the more spiritual, psychic, working with angels and guides kind of thing. But you also have this Aquarius master teacher, master knowledge in that 10th house, supposed to be public for everybody. The whole community, the whole tribe.
You are pushing my buttons.
So, you know, you have quite a few activations going on, you know, that way. But you're, and what I love too is in the 11th house, that's Aquarius's house. Okay. And the natural will, you know, that's Aquarius's house, but you have Aquarius in that house. So you're doubled up on the tribe and the community, and we're all equal. And right now we have a lot of transits, of course, in Aquarius. Saturn is one of them. It's still in the 10th house right now, but it'll move in shortly into the 11th. But Mercury and Jupiter and Pallas Athene, female warrior, Venus, I mean, they're all in your 11th house right now, transiting, which is, again, the community, you know, and this is a community. The podcast is a community.
It is.
Yeah.
It's very much. And then for those who don't know, because what you're saying here has hit on something that I have purpose to do. I never thought it would be able to happen in this way. But right now, we are in the process of building a place for people to come and teach, for all kinds of workshops, for all kinds of people to come together and learn all kinds of things, everything from how to grow a garden to canning, preserving that, doing all the things that are sustainable for living on this earth, even to the Star Nation people and what they're bringing us, and so many different avenues of things that will open up and help people. And so pretty much what you said is where I'm going with that. And then with the podcast, and yes, we are growing community, and the community that has come together so far with this are just phenomenal people. They really are.
Wonderful. That's great. I love, you know, getting groups of people together that think like this, and we can talk like this without, you know, a lot of the stuff going on out in the real world. You know, that real world can just sit for a little bit and we can talk about this world, you know, and at times it's hard to get people to move off of that angst and all that kind of energy that's out there. And it's like, you know, let's talk about something else, or let's get in a different energy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's easy to fall into that trap of, and especially on Facebook, because there's everything under the sun that could trigger a person
Yeah.
to step out of a good and positive energy. And it's interesting that that also gives us the opportunity to learn how to deal with that in a good way, so it's going to be what we make it and where we are. And that's exciting for me, because I do see a lot of people who understand that and are working towards that. And even though most of the time the most people that are vocal are the ones that are on that other side of the coin that are not making it easy. But yeah, I have so much faith and so much hope in us. And yes, I get aggravated sometimes. And when I do, I know, okay, Arla, you got to step back from this. And and you've heard me say this, I'm a stomper. I'm not much for going after people, talking about them or anything else, but I'll stomp. I'll get outside and I'll walk around and stomp and talk about it and talk to my guides and my helpers. And I just get right through it. And so I am not pushing that negative energy out into the world. I'm letting the Earth Mother take that from me. She's just, as I'm stomping and walking, she's just pulling it out of me. And my guides are talking to me. And it's so important for me not to hurt anyone or belittle them. And I think that would be about the hardest thing for me, was if I knew that I had hurt somebody purposely or made them feel less.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've never known you to do that.
Well, I don't think I have yet, but I might have come close.
I know, I'll go stand on my deck and yell at the tree sometimes, but
Yeah.
But we do have a glimmer of hope, and we do have a light at the end of the tunnel because of everything moving in to the Aquarian energy. The Aquarian energy and the air energy has taken over, but Pluto moves into Aquarius for 25 years. And this is 2021. But in 2023, it moves in for a few months. And then in January of 2024, it's in there for 25 years. And then we're talking about the transformation of the tribes and the community and humanity and we the people. I mean, a lot of that does need to be transformed into a higher energy. We the people, how do we take care of the community? The focus will be there and not on the government.
Right.
The people.
Yeah.
And thinking outside the box and stuff. And I say 2023, 2024, but it's not that far away.
No, it's not at all.
And I started talking about a lot of this in 2010. Remember, Arla?
Yes.
Twitter first formed, and I'm still talking about it in 2021, but we're almost through Pluto being in Capricorn now.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it is a light in the tunnel, and you can kind of feel a little lighter shift from December 21st when we moved into 200-year air cycle and kind of got out of the drudgery of the mud of the earth that we had been in for 200 years, as it was becoming muddy and kind of and so
So how is that air cycle going to affect us?
The air cycle, air is more, kind of more the genius energy. It's a lighter energy. It's a quicker energy. That's why when I said you can manifest things quicker, because it's a quicker energy. Again, it's more of a, we're all equal, we're all one, we're one tribe, we need to work together. That kind of energy is a lot of the air energy, and brings in a little more genius energy, and that type of energy when you get into air energy. And so, and I noticed the shift. We're still in a lot of the drudgery of all the politics and everything like that going on, which tends to drag people down. But I still have felt this little, almost every now and then, a little optimistic kind of. Where'd that come from?
Yes.
And that's that air energy. It's trying to lighten things up a little bit. But it is the genius energy. It is thinking outside the box. It's being able to see the big picture down the road. A lot of people can't see that big and head for it. That Aquarians do that. They can see the big picture. They can head for it.
Yeah, these manifesting things has really been in the forefront. And when you're watching Gaia TV or YouTube videos or anything else, it's this continual talk about manifesting. And that's not necessarily talking about manifesting wealth or any of these other things. There is manifestation works with everything.
Yes. You got to be careful what you think about. I tell people that watch what you're thinking, watch what you're saying. It can manifest immediately. Watch the energy you're using with it.
Yeah.
Especially
if you're putting a lot of energy into that thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So it's very, the air energy is powerful that way, because it's a lot of using the mind, using your thoughts, being able to see the future, kind of, the big picture, and, what do I want to happen, to we the people, or to our community or our tribe. I mean, there's a whole lot of we, focus on we. Mm-hmm. And the Capricorn energy that we're pulling out of is more about, the CEO or like a president, or like somebody that runs a company, and the father figure. And not that I'm trying to paint it all bad. I mean, I'm a Capricorn sun. There's good to it, but on the grayer side, it's more, I am the leader, I am the father, you go to bed now, on the grayer side. And that's kind of what we've been dealing with. And the Aquarian energy is going to go, no, we the people. What about the community? And that's very hopeful to me.
Yeah, I'm Capricorn, and both of my sons are Aquarius.
Interesting. Yeah, I have an Aquarian ascendant, so I get a little bit of that. But yeah, and the Capricorn again is the wisdom of the elders. We pull that wisdom from the elders down a lot, and and it's a manifesting sign also. Being able to bring more of the what am I going to say, the denser stuff, like how do I run Wells Fargo? How do I run a company? What am I on the high side, the low side? I get, that kind of a thing with Capricorn, and and then being able to bring that high spiritual and actually bring it down and ground it and use it. It's very interesting, because whenever you see a picture of the lotus flower, and they put the zodiac to the lotus flower, the three most important ones right in the middle, right there, is Capricorn, Pisces, and Aquarius. Mm-hmm. Capricorn, the manifester; Aquarius, we the people; Pisces, all the high spiritual angels and guides. And
Mm-hmm. I had a question from Sue Funkhauser. She wants to know, do you have to research a lot beforehand on a client's birthday or their year before presenting the information, or do you know it all so well that it's kind of off the cuff?
That's very interesting. In my earlier days, I could spend 2-3 hours working on a chart and then never feel really, totally there. I've been doing it for so long that I can read a chart fairly well you know, just off the cuff, like you said. I do some fairs sometimes where I do like little 20-minute readings. So it's just, I don't see it, the chart until then. But I always do take a little bit of time because I want to look at that South Node, and there's a whole formula for the South Node story, which gives you a little picture, a little parable to where you left off before you incarnated. You know, what was going on? What's that residue on your soul? And so I always want to take a little bit of time before I do a reading and look at that South Node and the ruler of the South Node and the house and the whole formula. But I can do them a lot faster now. It used to take me hours of preparation.
Yeah, that's understandable too, with all the information that you have to take in, because just from a little bit of reading about astrology that I've done, it's like most things that I get into, where like the more I learn, the less I know about it.
Yes. Yeah. And that is true. I'm always finding things. I get really excited when I find a new, hey, wait, you know, a new thing, a new transit. And I see things like when the pandemic came up, it was like, oh my God, I didn't know what it was. I knew something was going to be going on, but I didn't know what it was exactly. And as soon as it hit, I could see. It's like the symbols, you know, didn't you see this? It's like, oh God, yeah, you know. So yeah, it's like we're always learning, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of given a heads up about something last year around May. It was in early May. I was given like a heads up, but I wasn't told what was going to happen. But it was basically like something's about to happen, and I was like, okay, you know, I didn't really understand it, but it was like a preparation for just like you know, something's going to happen, something kind of big, and I was like, okay, cool. And then maybe 6 months in, I was like, oh, this must have been what I was being prepared for. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and with the pandemic, one of this little thing on the astrology, the nodes are very, very important. Well, the node at that time of the pandemic, I mean, it was getting ready to switch signs in May. And I love the universe and all of our angels and guides. And it's like I could feel they were getting, this is my version how I talk about it, they were getting urgent about something. I didn't know quite what it was. Well, the North Node was in Cancer, which is family, you know, becoming a family, taking care of your home. I mean, like making it a home, not a house, and your land and everything. And what I realized once the pandemic hit and things started, you know, that was kind of my aha thing. The universe was getting urgent because we were not doing the family thing. So lo and behold, the pandemic happened. All of a sudden, we were home with our families. We were home. I mean, CEOs that hardly ever saw their kids was eating supper with them for the first time. Finding out that, you know, hey, Saturday night playing games, you know, with the family and being, and isn't so bad. And this is really what the universe was wanting us to learn with the transiting North Node in Cancer. The urgency was we weren't quite doing it. Oh, well, I'll give them a pandemic and they'll be forced into doing it and find out they enjoy it. And that's kind of how that worked.
That's awesome.
So,
Yeah, I going like to the fear thing, and like when I woke up or started my awakening process, I went deep into the fear thing, you know, in the beginning of it. So when everyone started last year, when the fear thing kind of took off, it was kind of like I was real like, no, like everyone just chill out, like it's fine, you know. And then it frustrated me because I was like, man, everyone's taking this like fear thing to another level, and it frustrated me. And then I had to just kind of come to terms with it. And then at one point, it you know, I was kind of shown that like you went through this. You know, you went through this when you first started your awakening process, and we're having this mass awakening. So everyone is kind of doing what you did. So just give it time. You know, everyone will kind of slowly, because I pulled myself out of it because it just made me feel terrible. Like the further I went down it. So it was kind of shown to me like, just wait, people will come out, you know, this is just a process, you know, and eventually we'll get to, I'm hoping, you know, like what you were talking about earlier in 2024. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's not too far away, but yeah, that, I mean, it is the fear thing can really overtake people. And when I was watching on the 6th, I had the news on that day because I was wanting to watch as the states, the electoral college votes came in, you know, and that little bit, because I do keep track of the news. A lot of people are like, I can't handle it, but I look at it with my astrology, you know, like, okay, what's happening now? I keep track of it that way. But you know, this one reporter, cell phone reporter, who, whatever, but I mean, that was on the news a lot, this clip of this young lady. And I mean, she was so excited and in on all the fear and taking over the Capitol and everything. And the reporter asked her, like, you know, what are you doing, or what is your mission? Why are you, you know, whatever? And she was just like, I'm in a revolution. I'm in a revolution. Isn't it fun? I'm in a revolution. And I thought, you don't even know what your revolution is about. I mean, you know what I'm saying? She was so in the hype
Right.
of it that I'm so excited to be in the revolution. It was like, you know, being part of a revolution is knowing also what you're in the revolution for. But that was just kind of the whole, it was, I don't think, yeah. And it's like a lot of young people that, and I shouldn't just say young people, all ages, can get wrapped up in that energy so much that they don't even know why they're there, but they're excited and in the whole thing.
Totally. Yeah, I
You know?
totally
Yeah.
understand. Yeah, because when you wake up, and you start your awakening process, you know, you're just looking for answers. So people are just reaching for whatever they can get, and if they see something that seems like it's legit, you know, people just grasp for it and run with it. And then, so yeah, I totally understand it. That's why I can't, like, I might get a little frustrated with people, but I can't get mad at them because I totally understand where they're coming from.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and it's funny. That just reminded me of something when I was really, you know, gone ho in the astrology, and I studied with Stephen Force in our apprenticeship group out in California on top of a mountain. It sounds like otherworldly almost, but Veeder Mountain that forms Napa Valley, and we were in a camp in September and March, and it was a blind children's day camp during the summer. So in the winter, it didn't. So we were all together for 5 days on a mountaintop studying astrology. I mean, you know, it was amazing how that all just fell in my lap. I mean, I had no idea. I flew out to California, never flown before, I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know anybody out there. And my ex-husband now, who did not really get into my astrology, anyway, him and some of our friends would say to me, what is it that you think you're going to do with this? And my answer, what came to me and what I said was, I don't think the job's been created yet. And it hadn't at that time. It hadn't really been, but I just knew. And it's like that, you know, or jumping off the cliff and praying for wings. I knew I had to do it, and I knew something was going to come of it, but it hadn't been created yet. And I think a lot of people get caught up in that. Well, I got to see, you know, how much am I going to make here, or what's it going to go into? No, just turn it over.
Yeah.
That's basically been my whole past 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And I tell a lot of my students and a lot of the people I do readings for, you know, don't worry about that. If the job might not be created yet, just keep heading there. That's what feels good. That's what resonates with your soul. Continue moving.
Yep. Yeah. And it took about 2 years.
Yeah.
Last month, and I kind of figured it kind of fell in my lap, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So don't rush into anything, because I almost made that mistake of rushing into a couple things, and I think my calling is like finally manifested. So
yeah. The job's being created.
Yep. Yeah.
And I used to manifest too, strongly. And Arla, you remember this. I used to manifest, you know, someday I'm going to go international. Remember that, Arla?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I had visions of me going to like France, my whole body and everything, going to Australia, etc. I have gone national, like international, through Zoom and through
Yeah.
this kind of thing. I forgot that part. I forgot to put that in my manifestation that my body could go with me. But I have gone international, which I was manifesting back then. But it's just
Yeah.
kind of funny because I was really envisioning that I would get to
Yeah.
go to countries. But anyway.
And with Zoom, they get to see you. So,
Yeah.
and you get to see them. So
Yeah.
it's not quite the same, but it's pretty close.
Pretty close. Pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. Okay. We're going to talk about where everything was astrologically on the day that Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin filmed Patty. And most people that know me through my association with the Sasquatch or the Bigfoot or the hairy people or any other number of names that people have assessed to them. And so, you know, this was important to me. I know several years ago, we were in southeastern Oklahoma at a conference, and we were just kicking around things, and you said something about, well, you know, astrologically at that time, and, you know, ever since then, I've just been, you know, and then things that I was told, even before that, that was kind of like an affirmation for me, because one of the things that I had been told, not knowing all this other stuff, was that actually it wasn't Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson that created this situation of filming Patty. It was Patty herself. It was that consciousness that it was time to open this a little more and let people see. And it's the only film that, in my opinion, for whatever that's worth, that most of the people do understand that this is actually happened. This did happen. And, you know, that for me, knowing that they, the Sasquatch, were the ones who orchestrated this whole opening. There had been small openings. The door was being nudged before this time. But, you know, to know that, you know, part of my coming out in public and being known was because of my association with the Sasquatch or the Bigfoot people for basically my whole life. So that, with the help of the grandmothers of the International Council of 13, they were the catalyst that gave me that door that I was going to have to go through, not knowing what I was going through, but knowing I was supposed to open this door and go through it. Had no idea what was on the other side. And, you know, so I was in that place of, okay, this is where we're going to go. And then when we were talking, you know, about astrologically where all that was, it was like, yeah, that was seed planting too. There are many primal beings and other beings, Star Nation people, all kinds that have planted their own seeds for humanity and for this universe to grow into the universe that is so special.
Yes, absolutely. And that kind of brought me back a little bit as I was looking at your chart back when we talked the very first time we met, you know, down with the grandmothers, and I read your chart. I can see where that was now. When I said something about you have something to speak. You're being transformed. You're supposed to speak about something. You're supposed to bring it out. Remember that? And I think it was just, weren't you going to fly somewhere to some conference or something, or thinking about it? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, one of the things that happened at that time when you did the chart, I had no idea at that time that I would be going to California to the Center for Sacred Studies and Teaching. I was like, whoa, and you were just right on the date. And that was such a catalyst for me, being even associated with them and then going out there and teaching at the center there, because that is the umbrella for the International Council of the Grandmothers. And, you know, to get to be with Jyoti and some of the others.
Yeah.
And I had no idea when you did my chart that was going to happen.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't know what, I just knew something was going on. And I remember when you did that, I was like, that was it. I mean, I was like, oh, that was it, you know.
That was it.
That was it. Very powerful. When I look at the chart I just put Buffalo Creek Bigfoot. I don't know. That's how with the title.
That's all right. It doesn't matter. We're talking about the Patty film.
Yeah. I didn't know what to actually call it, but anyway, that was just, I mean, that's just on the chart, the name. But October 20th, 1967. And so that was in the middle of the hippies and in the middle of all the seeds that were planted at that time. 60s part 1, as I call it. And we were talking about that earlier. When I look at this chart of that film and bringing that knowledge out to people, you know, about this, you know, it's been kind of hidden back with a lot of the tribes and different things. And when you started talking about it to all of us, I mean, all of our ears just kind of, well, yeah, okay. You know, I remember going down to Oklahoma and, you know, saying, I'm going to go down, you know, like Bigfoot kind of thing. And people would look at me kind of weird, and I'd go, don't look at me weird. You know me. We had such a good time. When I look at the chart of this movie about Patty, really it's about Patty, the chart, you know, there's a lot up there in the 9th house, and the 9th house is the house of higher learning, religions, philosophies, higher spiritual learning, higher college learning, joy and optimism also comes in there, writing, teaching, all comes in there, the master teachers, travel. That's, you know, a very, very important house of getting all of the information out there, and the spiritual also, besides, you know, the college kind of. When I look at that chart, it says it's got Pluto sitting next to Ceres, and Ceres is a mother kind of a figure. Ceres, you know, her daughter was Persephone, and she was the goddess of the grains. That's where we get cereal from, you know, the name, and very loving mother of the earth. And, you know, she got pissed and froze the earth because Pluto tried to take her daughter. All the humans were dying because they couldn't eat, because she was the mother of all of this. Okay, so that figure of the mother energy and the creating energy there is sitting right between Pluto and Uranus. Pluto, planet of transformation, Uranus, constant change, and we the people. And then also connected in that house is Juno, which is a commitment. And Juno's in Libra. Libra is about balance. You know, the equal give and take. It's very creative. It's ruled by Venus. They're all in that very, very high house of knowledge. And it's almost like we need to get this knowledge out there. There needs to be change in how it's accepted. There needs to be transformation in being able to get this knowledge out there, and from 1967, and transforming that so that we can get it out. And Pluto and Ceres and Uranus are all in Virgo. And Virgo is an earth sign. Virgo is the house of service, being of service to people, health and healing, mentorship, teaching it. That's all Virgo energy. Writing, you know, and the downside to that Virgo energy is perfectionism, over perfectionism, where you never get anything out to the public because it's not perfect yet, or you don't think you know enough yet. That's kind of the gray side of Virgo. Very, very strong in transformation and change of getting this knowledge out there. When this film was made and when Patty came about, you know, we got to get it out there. It shows right there. The midheaven, the cusp of the 10th house, which is the public house, okay, that's where the sun sits, all the life force energy, the sun, and it's in Libra, and the midheaven is in Libra. And again, Libra is, you know, equal give and take. We're all balanced in. Nobody's better than anybody else. We're balanced. And you know, it's ruled by Venus, which is love and creativity. Libra is also about the law, more like, you know, the family law and that lower kind of law. Now, the 9th house where Pluto and Uranus and Ceres sits is international law, if you're looking at the law part. A lot of activity in those houses. It was like this knowledge was supposed to come out. Okay.
I really believe that. And, you know, basically you said pretty much what I knew at that time, that, you know, they are some of our master teachers. If, you know, we want to learn it, you know, and most of the time people just want to know about them. But the truth of the matter is they're here to teach us about us and, you know, how we're supposed to be. They're here to help us. And then again, it's our choice to grow in that or to not grow in it.
Yeah, exactly. And with the sun there in the 10th, it's like shining bright, you know, okay, it's going to be equal give and take here. You know, a lot of creativity, a lot of love, a lot of artistry, kind of. You know, which kind of just, okay, so a big memory just came back when I said that, the artistry there. And you think of Libra, Libra's artsy, you know, people with a lot of Libra like to go to arts festivals and have fun and love and this kind of a thing. When we were in Oklahoma, okay, when we went down with you there, we were focused on the Bigfoot and everything, and it was really interesting. And they did come to visit her one night because we could smell them, and things were being knocked over and nobody was knocking them over. Remember that? Anyway, but there was also the fairies. Remember the fairy gathering? That they called me down. The Bigfoot or whatever called me down to the fairy gathering. That's a Libra. That's a Libra fun, artsy festival kind of event.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. You know, and you're talking about them taking you to the fairies. That's something that I talk about a lot, you know, and I tell people they're neighbors. They all live together. We're the neighbor that has disconnected from that life. And as we connect back to that life, we see all these symbiotic lives that are going on out there. And, you know, people are learning that there's more to this. They're not just some ape or whatever. They're ascensioned people, but they're more. They're who we are, in a sense, as to what we were at one time. And I'm not talking about physically, I'm talking about spiritually and how we connected with everything. We didn't walk away from our neighbors. We, talked to them, and whether they were fairies or little people or, whatever. And if you get into indigenous stories, you see that it's there for you to look at and to understand that, well, at some point we walked away.
Yeah, and it's, working with the Bigfoot, working with the fairies, leprechauns, whatever, you have to get your mind out of that judgment thing, for one thing. And you just, you just have to become part of the earth, part of the, how do you see fairies? I never seen. Well, I don't, how can I say this? I guess I'm just in a different state at that particular moment. I'm not, expecting and looking for a little fairy with wings like Tinky.
They're just there.
I played with them when I was young.
Yeah.
And so people just have to let their stringent mechanical kind of minds go and let it flow. The same with angels and guides and etc.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, they're most people can't see them because they're too rigid into the reality of Earth.
Yeah.
There's this whole other world out there that you can connect with just as easy.
Yeah. Yep. And it's actually that normal world. It's the world that is normal for so many people and is becoming more the norm all the time. And, we're that new normal. So I kind of like thinking about that more and more and more people are opening their hearts and seeing with their hearts instead of just their eyes and the conditioning that they've been in, in their lives. So when I work with someone who's opening up, it's like I'm getting to experience that all over. That joy, that feeling of, oh, wow, that excitement of, getting an answer to something. And here with the astrology that you do, those things are actually already in the charts. They're there. You don't know what they are, but they're there. And, like I've heard you say, something's going on. You may not know what it is, but it's a heads up to be aware.
Yeah. Yep. And I get a lot of enjoyment a lot of times out of them. I can see somebody's chart and know that they're very intuitive and know that they're very psychic. And if they have a lot, like an 8th house, that they can be very connected to Earth spirituality. That's part of the 8th house, Scorpio's house. And the Earth spirituality is seeing the spiritual and that whole arena in the earth. And with a lot of people, the crystals and stones will get them right away. That's part of it.
Yeah.
That themselves go into the earth spirituality. And, that is also seeing, the fairies and the earth elementals and everything that involves in the earth, which of course, healing with everything from the earth, growing your own food and growing your own medicine, and the shamans being healers and helping people pass if they couldn't heal them. And that's hospice and communicating with the soul, and it passes over, reporting back to family, and that's mediumship. I mean, and that's only just a little bit of the umbrella of the 8th house of the earth spirituality and natural shamanism. But if I see a lot of that in a house, depending on the person and what I'm picking up on, it's like I'll say, have you ever just let yourself play with the fairies or anything? And they'll kind of look at me funny, and I go, you can. It's right there in your chart. Kind of breaking that, hold that they have on the reality, and just say, no, it's in your chart there. You can do that. And they just light up. But it depends on kind of what feeling I'm getting from them. But Yeah.
That's really cool. Have you got any questions, Sam?
Well, actually, yeah. Deb Matthews asked, how much do you charge for readings?
Okay.
I don't know if you want to like discuss that later, or if you're cool with discussing it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. My normal reading, reading when I do a reading for somebody, is 130, and it usually lasts over an hour. It's supposed to be like an hour, but I always go over. I just can't.
Yeah. I'd like to. I need to get a reading done. I kind of fell into that like rigid structure of what I thought reality was for a long time, and I always thought astrology was just kind of it wasn't my thing. And because I grew up in like the city, and had to be like tough guy bravado, and like whatever. And so and then when all this stuff started happening with me, when my awakening started or whatever, I still didn't even pay attention to it until a couple of years ago, and I started reading about it, and then I learned about like Saturn return and Uranus opposition, Pluto square. And so because all this stuff started happening when I had my like real kickstart to this when I was 35.
Okay.
And so for the past like almost 10 years now, it's just progressed, and the past couple of years have really taken off. And so I've never had a reading done, and now that I've kind of read about that process, I'm curious to see like the dates because I have a lot of dates in my mind of when things happen specifically, so I'm like very curious.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would love to. It's a lot of people are kind of stuck on the old astrology. Or, well, they predict this or that, and it's kind of woo woo, and this kind of a thing, and it really isn't. It's really very concrete, really. I mean, it's like, well, this is the chart of the Bigfoot movie thing. Right. But if this was your chart, that would be your soul. When you take, when you're born, as above, so below, the energies that are up there coming down to earth almost make like a tattoo on your soul. That's your soul work. You incarnate, they help you incarnate. There's a master astrologer. So that everything that you want to get accomplished in this incarnation will be triggered at the right time with the transits. And it's amazing how that all works, but it's just it's this energetic soul imprint.
Yeah. Actually, when I was reading a book, I think it was Barbara Handclough.
Yeah.
And right. I was reading her book about astrology and Kundalini rising, and that's what really like triggered. And I remember one night I was laying in bed, and I had this image of how it kind of works like a combination lock, but say with like 100 different numbers. So you like it, like when everything starts to spin, it gets to a point, it's like click, and then something happens to you, and then it keeps spinning, and then it gets to a point where everything lines up and something else happens. It's like, and it just kind of unwinds itself like that.
Yeah.
But I guess that's just how my mind had to kind of comprehend it.
Yeah, and that's a really good image or whatever of that. And it does kind of do that. The trance just kind of click in there, and then all of a sudden you're in something, and in a transformation or in a change. And if you kind of understand astrology a little bit, it'd be okay, what's the transit going on? And I'll get calls from people, I need a reading, something's happening, so something is triggering something, and a kind of thing. It's yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely not the astrology, especially like evolutionary astrology is nothing like what I thought astrology was.
Yeah, no, it is. It's wonderful. It's your soul energy interpreted in a way that you can work with it and guide it and make better choices.
Yeah. Cool stuff.
All right. We've got about 30 minutes left. Awesome. So, Cathy's what you spoke in Australia, where you did a Zoom speech when you were talking about the seed planting of the 60s and how we've come full circle, or we're coming around the circle to be back again.
Yes. Yeah. It's okay. Yeah. It's a Zoom. What do I want to say? A group from really Jeffrey Wolf Green's camp, kind of, because I do things with Stephen Forrest camp too. And the one that puts it together is Linda Johnson out of Australia. And it's international. There's a lot of people in the Netherlands and all over that tune into that group. YouTube's, I'm on some of the YouTubes and that kind of thing. The speech that I did last week was about, I've been working on it for a while, and I probably could have talked a lot longer, but it's basically on the 60s, what I call 60s part 1 to the 60s part 2, which we're in right now. And a lot of the seeds that were planted back in the mid 60s, the old hippies you might think of, etc. Those seeds were planted and kind of nourished at that particular time with really love and peace and joy and optimism. They kind of went dormant for a little while, is how I kind of put that. And they were ignited by the planets Pluto and Uranus sitting together, which is called a conjunction. It was an immutable energy, and mutable energy kind of goes with the flow and is a little, smoother and that kind of atmosphere when these seeds were planted. And now 60s part 2 really started about 2010. And the planets, Pluto and Uranus, were in a square then. And a square is a lot of friction and a lot of stress kind of energy. If you can imagine a square, it's just they weren't getting along real well, but you can grow through a square. It just takes a lot of work to grow through a square. So since 2010 and now, even though Uranus has moved on into Taurus, we still have Eris there. Eris came into picture to help with the changes that we're going through right now, the transformation of the governments and the stock markets and the CEOs and all of the Capricorn kind of energy. And so Eris was discovered in 2005, and her energy became very, very prominent in like 2015, for sure, 2014. Her energy is that of chaos, discord, jealousy, wild card energy. She was known, one of her things that she did was she started the Trojan War. And so she has, since she's been discovered and has a glyph, has a name and everything, her energy became very active on Earth. And so she has also come in along with Uranus in a square with Pluto. This is the 60s part 2. Main characters, Pluto, Uranus, and Eris in this later one. A lot of these seeds have come full circle, and I think one that people can put their mind around would be like on February 9th of 1964, the Beatles appeared on Ed Sullivan, and the world was never the same. Everything changed after that, from long hair to the music to the Beatles started getting into meditation and spirituality, and just you can just follow it. The world was never the same once they appeared on Ed Sullivan. And I was sitting in my living room, and I was all of just 3 weeks earlier turned 14. And I was so in love with Paul McCartney. So when I did a lot of this research, I'd go full circle. Of course, the music and everything, and a lot of the things that the Beatles stood up for, and they had their own stuff going on, helped change the world at that point and bring it to a point of, changes. And then the changes kind of went a little dormant for a while. They were still in, all of us hippies, but we didn't have the opportunity to bring it out, because the two planets that can bring anything out is Pluto and Uranus. So they had to get into the square before they could finish anything. So if you take the Beatles on Ed Sullivan in 64, come full circle. Okay, one of the things that would be full circle with the Beatles would be the March for Our Lives. Okay, so March for Our Lives, if you remember that, and I don't have my charts with me, was that in 2017, 16, 18? Anyway, I don't remember the exact date. Paul McCartney marched in the March for Our Lives, marched in New York City for John Lennon, who had been shot with a gun. And the March for Our Lives was, you know, the kids that had been killed with the guns and different things in the bar, the gay bar or whatever, where people were killed. Anyway, full circle. So Paul McCartney was one of the Beatles' seeds planted, came around now to the 60s part two, and marched for John Lennon during that. Also during that March for Our Lives, we're going to go back to 1964 and 68, when Martin Luther King gave his famous speech, and then when he was assassinated. Come full circle again, March for Our Lives. Martin Luther King's granddaughter spoke in Washington, D.C., and gave a speech at March for Our Lives. And so full circle, that's part of the full circle things. There's a lot of them, and I don't have all those notes here, a lot of full circle. You know, even, okay, so another full circle one, and I signed petitions and I was in marches for taking care of the earth. My big thing was litter. You know, we got a whole bunch of laws passed, you know, where there were fines if you started littering the highways. I mean, the highways were horrible back then, litter everywhere. And then marched and signed petitions for Earth Day. And so we started that and did that in the mid 60s, actually passed Congress and became a national holiday, Earth Day, August 22nd in 1970. Full circle. We're in an earth crisis right now. We're in an earth crisis, and we're trying to do things to help the water, to do things to help you know, all of the earth and global warming, etc. So another full circle thing. You know, we had a lot of the discrimination going on. Rodney King, was that his name? A big in Los Angeles, a big riot, and it had to do with the, you know, he was Black, and I don't know, I don't remember all the details of that. Full circle again, you know, Black Lives Matter and all of the things going on now. Also back in the 60s was when the Black people got a lot of their rights. They could sit anywhere they wanted on the bus. You know, they were able to drink out of any water fountain they wanted. Because when I went to New Orleans in 1963, there were signs, white only could drink out of this drinking fountain. And you followed the arrow for the Black people, and it was a pipe coming out of the ground. They had to kneel down to suck the water out of the pipe. Mid 60s. And so now, you know, they're still fighting for rights, but they're getting more of them, but there's still that going on. Women's rights. Boy, I marched back then. Did you? Did you, Arla? Women were burning their bras. Women were marching, and you know, we needed equal pay. We needed to be treated equally. We didn't need to be discriminated against because we wanted to work and not sit at home and cook and clean all day. We fought for these rights. You know, we fought for the right that nobody control our body or our uterus. You know, it's our body, our uterus. Not that we would do anything mean or anything, you know, 90% of, at least, of the young girls that would get pregnant wouldn't have had an abortion. They would have raised a kid. What was going on back then, a lot of people don't understand, is young women, young girls were dying in alleys and Hotel 6s and stuff with somebody that had taken 2 classes, you know, as a doctor and a hanger, and they were dying. They were getting abortions. And anyway, we fought back then for that, and we're still fighting for that now. And that's what the Me Too movement was about. full circle.
Now, that, you know, we had talked earlier about, for those of us who have lived in both of these times, and, you know, knew what was going on personally during those times, and now to see the changes, yet there is still that holdover of some of the things that we need to cleanse and transmute and make these things as they should be. And we have that opportunity to manifest that in a good way now. And I think that's what really excites me, is that opportunity to help to make it better.
And you know, I like how the universe works. Another one real important right now is the LBGT, that whole thing. In the mid-60s, 67, I think, I can't remember the exact date, was a huge march and almost riot kind of thing that happened in Greenwich Village in New York, having to do with gay rights. That was in the mid. Okay, so we still have a big LBGT, you know, community going on now. I mean, everything to what Western use, whatever, and fighting here and there. Okay, those seeds were planted back in the 60s.
No.
What I love about the beauty of the universe and everything is that it was never forgot those seeds were planted so that they could become ripe now, while we have the energy of the square between Pluto and Uranus. That energy back down, and it only keeps going. And that was the only way the universe knew that we could nurture those seeds and get them on the right track. And then it had to all be brought out in the open, because it's been behind closed doors and swept under the rug, along with a whole bunch of other stuff, you know, government and corporate rise, so that it can all heal, so that we can build the new on a foundation that isn't crumbling.
Right. Right. And the younger ones get to have at least a small taste of what was going on at that time. And, you know, how now we've been given a chance to finish what we started, to harvest what we planted. And that's really exciting for me.
Me too. And another, you know, like I love talking to younger people a lot too, because they'll be talking about, you know, LBGT or whatever, and of course all my Aquarius, I never thought there was anything different between any of them anyway, but you know, growing up, but to talk to some of the younger ones and to say, because they think we're all kind of dumb, and to go, oh no, I know all about that. Do you know when that started and why? And their eyes will get this big. They don't have a clue where that all started. You know, they almost get started with them. And it's like, no.
Yeah, there are so many that thinks that the hippie movement, if you want to call it that, was about drugs and free love and getting high and doing all this other. That was not the basic of what it was about.
Yeah. No.
That was a that like derogatory and like negative connotations put on hippies was a campaign against, to try and skew it to the public.
Because I was a full-fledged hippie. but I lost. Oh, okay. So I'll say this now. I said it to you earlier, Arla. Woodstock, the 50th anniversary of Woodstock was 2 years ago now, 1 year ago, the 50th anniversary. I can't believe that, of Woodstock. Okay, Woodstock was a gathering of what, close to almost 1 million people. It was a 3-day concert, a gathering of hundreds of thousands of young people, and there was not one arrest for anything violent. Not arrest for anything violent. And 3 months later, Big Sur concert. It was out on California coast. That one was like 100,000 people that attended that. Not one arrest. Not one arrest. the basic energy of us hippies back then was peace and love, and we're all created equal, and music. And and that's how we diffused it, because we had Watergate going on, we had the Vietnam War going on, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis right at the beginning of all of that. We had all that going on just like we do now. We chose to focus the energy, not on the fear and everything, on peace and love and music. And at the Big Sur concert, Joni Mitchell was, if you know who she was the main one of the main acts. And her song became one of the anthems, which was, you know, come on, everybody, smile on your brother. Everybody get together and try to love one another right now. One of the main songs of the Beatles, give peace a chance. And that we would sing that when we were marching. Come on, everybody, you know, let's give peace a chance. Let's, you know, that was a song we sang all the time. We sang Joni Mitchell's song all the time. There were several of them like that. The words were very powerful back then.
Yeah, they were.
A whole different energy of the words that we were doing then. So we diffused a lot of it because we focused on peace and love and music, and everyone's equal and everyone get along. That's what we need to do now. We need to diffuse this division energy, this fear energy, this fighting energy, this anger and angst, and diffuse it. That's the ultimate. That's the ultimate goal of harvesting these seeds.
To me, that just, you know, it gives me chills, because it's like, here it is, you know, and I'm this big garden person, so, you know, I planted seeds, and you wait for that seed to come up. You just can't wait for that to break the ground, and here we are with the chance of a wonderful harvest.
Absolutely. You know, so now I've been told I'm supposed to write an article and then eventually a book on all this, my 60s part 1 and 2. We'll see.
What did your chart say?
Oh yeah, yeah, I know.
That's awesome.
Research, I got charts, and you know, I've got them all saved. All these things. I know. I'm going to start with an article. I won't be so overwhelmed, because I guess I'm supposed to do that.
It'll be a good one. It'll be a good one.
But
going back to the 60s.
Yeah. So.
You know, Ram Dass, he kind of got, he was led onto the spiritual path by trying LSD, or he tried psilocybin mushrooms, and then he did LSD a lot, and that was during the 60s. And it kind of led him down this path, and then he, you know, went to India and met his guru and all that. Well, while he was in India, he gave his guru LSD, and it, you know, didn't affect his guru whatsoever. And so eventually he asked many enlightened people that he met what they thought about LSD. And he had, I can't remember if this was his guru or not, Neem Karoli Baba, but somebody sat with it and came back to him later and said that the Western society and Western culture was so stuck in physical reality, and so stuck in you know, our ways of, you know, capitalism or whatever. And so something needed to be created to waken people up. Like there needed to be a physical something that people could take to kind of awaken them to their spirituality or whatever it was. And so he was kind of shown that was created to get the Western culture to kind of wake up in a way, to kind of kick off the spiritual awakening in a way, because it would have been hard to do otherwise. And I just thought that was like such a cool thing to hear, that like, you know, like just from our physical Western culture mindset, that you needed to make something physical for us to ingest in order to wake us up to the non-physical. And
right. No, and no, I go along with that. I mean, I think that was with the hippies, the big thing was pot,
right,
marijuana.
right,
Okay. Because we had never really done any real drugs yet, and the LSD, but it kind of gave you that ability to sit back and go, wow, you know, and you could hear music the way you didn't hear it before, and you could get transported to that other level, which people were really starving to get to that spiritual level. They didn't know that's what they wanted.
right.
You know, when you're meditating, when you're in that, I mean, you know, it feels so good. It's a whole, well, I mean, they called it a high, but it's a connection with spirit that we were losing.
Yeah, it's kind of loosening the grip of
Yeah.
our conditioning and programming and stuff. Yeah, and then you kind of wake up and you're like, yeah, because you know, in my 20s and stuff, I mean, definitely, you know, it was like you'd have all these epiphanies, you know, you'd be like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, it's cool because you know, you don't understand it obviously when you're that young, but when you get older and look back, you're like, now I get it.
Wow. Yeah. It's interesting. When I was a child, I think we've talked about that. You know, there's a lot of people that go around, and you know, I was really raised Catholic. You know, I went to an all-girls Catholic high school, and you know, grade school, where you had to go to mass every day before class. Okay, so you know, I'm a first grader going to mass every day before I could go to school. Actually, you know, I had a really good experience with my Catholic upbringing because of, you know, my soul growth, I guess, in other lifetimes. I don't know, my Pisces energy. But when I had to sit in mass every day, back then it was even late Latin, I went up. I went into imagination and went beyond there. You know, and the Catholic Church honors angels, so there's statues of angels around. There are statues of ascended masters, the saints, you know, Saint Michael, and you know, I got to the point where it was fun for me to go to mass that I didn't pay any attention to and couldn't understand the language because I was playing and talking with the angels. And so I was already doing all that. That was natural. So when I awoke and I started getting in and talking, you know, the metaphysical and going to the bookstores and doing the astrology, I was up there all the time. It was harder for me to ground, and people would go, how do you get up there? And I'd go, I don't know. I'm you know, how do you ground? You know, people were saying to me, ground, Cathy, ground, you know. So that ability to, which I still struggle at times, you know, I gotta get myself grounded. Whenever I write, I'm always gone up there. But I noticed that I could kind of get that feeling, at least the beginning of knowing there was that feeling, when I would, you know, smoke pot when I was a hippie. And that's where I made that correlation with those that don't understand what I'm saying. When you get to the spiritual, once they started smoking that, they wanted to grasp a little more of that feeling. And that's what they were really feeling, was the spirituality part. They didn't, does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense, because I absolutely agree. That's what I've said before. When I think that when people say that type of thing, or when marijuana or whatever is a gateway drug, the reason it's a gateway drug, in my opinion, is because it gives people a taste of, you know, that spiritual, or the spirit, you know, of spirit or whatever. And so then people want to get more of it. So they'll try and something else that's a little bit stronger, thinking that will give them more of it, you know, or they start going forward. And then some people just ruin their lives because they keep thinking that's the only way they can get there. And they keep trying more and more stuff. And it, you know, I worked with psilocybin mushrooms a lot when I was younger. And it was the same thing. And then as I got older and I started getting to a point where I just didn't need, like, I just don't need to even
Right.
go there anymore, you know?
Right. And that's the beauty of it, is when you know, yeah, that feels really good, but I can get there through meditation. I can
Right.
get to these other, I can get that feeling. In fact, a lot of the feeling, you know, you can't get through the drugs. You do have to, if you want to get it higher, you have to go into the spiritual.
Right. Yeah.
I remember the first time that I actually, well, and it's hard to get there, but I was in a really, really deep meditation and I felt the bliss that they talk about sometimes in the little sections of the Bible or books or different things, that bliss. And it was like, I remember I never felt it like that before, my whole body, and it was the most beautiful feeling I ever felt, this blissful feeling. And immediately, you know, my thought process was, now I understand why people become nuns and priests. If I could spend all day getting to this spot, that would be all I'd want to do.
Yeah, totally. And I've experienced that through meditation, and I've experienced that with the Sasquatch people. And there's no drug that can come close to it. So yeah, and if you ever experience that, you would, nothing ever comes close to it. Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's, you know, back to the good old hippies again. You know, we need to focus on nurturing and bringing to life those seeds of diffusing, you know, the anger and the angst and the hate and the everything that's out there right now, the fear really bad, the division really bad, and start bringing in those seeds that were planted with peace and love, and because they were planted during a, you know, we were in a revolution at that time also.
Right. Yeah, I think what the and I just learned this recently, was what you were referring to, the Catholics call divine mercy. It's basically like referred to as when you feel like love, and I think that it's, with Catholics, it's referred to as the love that Jesus gives from his heart. It comes from his heart area or whatever. And because yeah, when you feel that, it's amazing. That was my chasing the dragon moment. When I felt that, I was like, I need to get more of that, you know?
Yeah. That bliss, it was just, that's all I could call it. It was just, yeah, you can't describe it. Bliss was my word to describe it. But
bliss and euphoria, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's yeah, and Arla, you know, like you said, the fact that we lived through the mid-60s to help plant the seeds, and now to be here, you know, where the seeds are still kind of dormant because everything's still crumbling, but we know we can get those seeds started again in the ascension energy, the new world we're building, all these things we've been talking about since 2010, you know, especially since 2010, when Pluto and Uranus first formed the square again, to bring us into the ascension, to bring us into the new world. We cannot get to that new world until we have a strong foundation. And the foundation now is crumbling. We need the love and we need the peace. We need that version of it to make the new really grow.
Yeah. I agree. I know Kashima had told me many, many years ago that we had been given the chance to understand this, that we had purpose to do. And, you know, he was not only talking about the 60s, but the 60s encompassed what he was talking about. And one of the things that he said was, we have been given chances to grasp this understanding and bring it to fruition. And now here we are we've got this opportunity to bring this about, to bring those plants up through the earth, and to be able to see that that harvest is something that we know is just right there. I mean, it's just right there. So many now are building that foundation. And one of the things that he said to me about that was the 100th monkey thing, where once you get so many believing something or doing something, then that tips the scales. And one of the things he said was in that, because we talked about, you know, the more people who understand this, the more people who grasp this, the easier it will be. And he said, it's not so much about the quantity of those who are working towards this, but the quality of those working towards this, because we know that as an individual, we can manifest. And when we come together, it's just magnifies that manifesting in such a wonderful way. And I see so many quality people out there working on this foundation right now, so that we are going to bring those seeds to plants and to fruition.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, especially with the light at the end of the tunnel, we know just within a couple years, and we're already working on it, you know, with Pluto going into Aquarius, the focus is going to be on the people and the tribe and the community, and not on CEOs and leaders and father figures, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Good.
This has been awesome tonight. I really have enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming on and bringing what you bring.
you get me talking, and I can.
Oh yeah, we know how that is. We've been up into wee hours.
Yeah. And one thing leads to another and leads to another. Yeah.
Oh, it does. Oh, it does. It's just awesome. You know, it's just awesome. So, but thank you so much, Cathy. It was so good to see you and hear you.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Kind of in person.
Yes, kind of in person.
Well, I enjoyed it too. So that was fun. I like it.
Yeah, it was great. It's a good time.
Thank you.
All
right.
Okay.
You want to close this out, Sam?
Sure. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and thank you, Cathy, for coming on. Is there anything else you guys want to say, or is there anything you'd like to, like, any kind of plugs you'd like to drop, or like your website or anything like that, Cathy?
My website's kind of under construction right at the moment. If anyone wanted to get a hold of me right now, like an email to AstroEyes, AstroEyes at AOL.com, until I get my website back up working.
And you're on Facebook.
Yeah.
Huh?
You're on Facebook.
I'm on Facebook also, yeah. And I do have some YouTubes out there from my group in Australia, which is part of what I'm trying to get onto my website and stuff. But yes, I am on Facebook also. I post new moon and full moon reports every month.
You can find them on my page.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Anything you want to say, Arla?
It's been an awesome night. I really enjoyed this. And I've got a freaking chicken and a missus parked outside my house.
Yeah. Good.
Matthew was pecking on the window a while ago. You probably saw good weird stuff. So
Good.
yeah,
Well, tell them I said hello and send them my love.
I will do it.
All right.
Okay. Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.